Hi, friends. Welcome to Getting Your Real Estate Life Together. I'm Tracy Hicks with All Things Real Estate. And today I have my friend who's a friend of a friend, Keri Friedman. Welcome, Keri.
Thank you.
So, Keri has been a realtor for a whole 7 weeks, which
Whole 7 weeks.
which
Yep.
probably feels like a lifetime. I think we just mentioned that.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It does so much in such short time.
Yeah. So Keri and we chatted prior to her getting her license, and like I said, she is a friend of a friend. She's local here in Portland, and I thought it would be really awesome to have her on because she's new to the business, and I think obviously we've all been there, right? We all had to be new at one point. And so talking about that with fresh eyes as a new agent is really important for people to kind of understand the process. And, you're going to speak to people that are maybe thinking about getting into real estate or just got into real estate. So I'm excited to hear your perspective and kind of your process and all that good stuff. So let's just jump right in. Why did you decide that you wanted to be a realtor?
Yeah. So the last year, like the last year in everyone's life, has been unexpected and challenging. On my side, I had a 20-some year career in marketing and PR in the photography and publishing industries. And for a number of reasons, early 2020, I realized it was time for me to kind of figure out a next thing. And so I was working on that, and I figured I was going to go do marketing for, another, kind of creative industry company. And then COVID hit, and half my company got laid off, myself included. And, and there was, all of that. And then, over the summer, I was applying for, these, marketing jobs. And it was, I got interviews, but I wasn't getting offers. And by the end of the summer, I was just like, I am burnt out on this. I think maybe I need to start thinking more creatively and looking at, what are my strengths, my experience, and my skills, and what else can I do with that besides go work for some other company and, and market their product or services. So
Yeah.
once I kind of freed myself from the next obvious step and really, looked at it from a different perspective, I was thinking about a number of things, but I happened to reconnect with an old high school friend who has been an agent in Philly for the last decade. And we got on the phone, and, I kind of picked her brain, and it really, that started to really help form like, oh, this is something that maybe I could actually do. And so then I did a bunch of online research, and I talked to you, obviously, which was, amazingly helpful. And then, you started the connector ball rolling, and you connected to Shelly, and then Shelly connected me to other people. And then I basically, spent the fall kind of, sorting out like monetarily, can I do this? And do I want to do this? And how do I best, go about doing this? And pretty much decided, by November, I think that, yeah, I was going to do it. So took the 150 hours, finished in January, tested in February, and passed, even though I was like, oh my God, it's just been so long since I had like taken a standardized test, and I was an absolute nervous wreck, especially because like the first 5 questions, I was like, what? I don't remember learning this. This was not in the 90 practice tests I took, and it shook my confidence, but in the end, I passed. It was fine. And what was the challenge was getting my fingerprints to pass, because apparently I don't have very like strong fingerprints. So that was like I would have had my license like 3 weeks earlier if my fingerprints weren't such a problem. But
Oh
then
my gosh.
March 31st, and I was really glad it wasn't April 1st, because that would feel like an inauspicious day to
Right.
like get
Not an April
licensed. But
Fool's
March,
joke.
exactly. So March 31st, it went through. But in the meantime, spent from January through March, researching brokerages, learning from talking to you and everybody else about, culture fit and, and everything like that. I had some specifics, and I talked to probably, I think, 5 brokerages, and usually, at least 3 to 4 people per brokerage, from principal broker down to like some of the newer agents and the long-term agents, so I could kind of get a good overall snapshot of, what it was like to work with them.
Yeah.
And I made a spreadsheet, and there was a lot of information. And I drove myself a little crazy, but I knew I thought I wanted, even though I did research kind of a little bit wider than that, a smaller to medium sized brokerage. I mean, I'm not a big company person. I've done the gigantic corporate culture thing, and that's not my thing. So I knew that wasn't going to be it. I've spent most of my career working for small to medium sized companies. I wanted an environment where there was really good, educational opportunities, where there was a really good support system, because I
Yeah.
knew I wasn't, I might pass my test, but I'm not going to know what the hell I'm actually doing.
Right,
So,
right.
I wanted to make sure that, I was going to have those resources, and then also just that that I connected with the people there. And so I didn't have any really bad conversations or, bad experiences, but by the time I got to Urban Nest, which was the last group I talked to, within the first conversation I had with one of their agents, I'm like, oh, yeah, I think this is it. And then I talked to the principal broker, Karen Bilsing, who is, oh my God, she is an amazing human being. And I'm like, I can't imagine doing this without her help and assistance and amazing patience. And once I hit them and I, talked to the owners, Rachel and Holly, and I was like, yeah, this is it.
So
So
you talked about company culture, and it's not a new concept by any stretch, but I think it's definitely something that has come to the forefront quite a bit over the years, especially in real estate. And everybody knows what they want out of a brokerage, or at least they have an idea. And then, of course, when you talk to other brokerages, you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, I do want that. Or no, that's not as important as I thought it was. But for company culture for you, what was kind of the forefront of what you were wanting out of that work life culture, all that good stuff? Like, what was it that you really wanted out of that?
yeah, I mean, I wanted a brokerage that was very Portland. I mean, there's obviously I mean, I love Portland. I love the city. I love all of the wonderful, neighborhoods, and an agency that was really kind of rooted in that, involved in the community, doing things in the community. That was important to me. And also just a group of people who, I mean, I was saying how amazing Karen was, but there is always an agent who is more than willing to jump in and help out the newer agents. And that was just people who kind of had that personality, had that sort of giving, helpful nature, was really important as well. So, yeah.
And so when you talk to the agents, I know that obvious perspective and is going to be different between maybe the brokerage owners and the brokers a little bit, because usually brokerage owners they're still realtoring and running the brokerage, but still it's a different mindset between the principal broker and the agents. What did you find in talking to some of the brokerages that you talked to? What Was there a stark difference between what the brokers and the brokerage principal brokers had to say about their firms, or was it pretty balanced?
It actually was pretty balanced. I don't think, I don't recall off the top of my head having any conversations that really that felt that they
Totally
didn't feel
different.
like they were basically, yeah, no, I did not encounter any of that. So I think, everyone kind of seemed to have, a similar take of what it was actually like to be an agent there, whether they were, yeah, up here, or whether they were 2 or 3 years in. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And you talked about support a little bit. Some brokerages have a TC or a transaction coordinator, or some of them have marketing help, or some of them have, maybe a front desk person or somebody that can be a coordinator among the agents to help with the things that they need in their business. Obviously marketing is important to you, but it's also your background. So when you were interviewing brokerages, what was said about marketing, and what were you looking for and or hoping for, and kind of how did that go? Do you remember any of those conversations?
Yeah. I mean, I think I was definitely less worried about what marketing support services they could provide me, because I knew as long as they had a brand book and files, and I could do that kind of thing. So I wasn't super worried. That was not a big worry to me. I mean, I talked to, I think, as far as what, and Urban Nest has a marketing person and has an office manager, so there is some of that support stuff if I do need help, all the way up to like I ended up talking to Coldwell Banker Bain, Lake Oswego, because Shelley said how amazing Ward Spears was. And I met with him, and he is amazing. He was really, really, I seriously considered them when they wouldn't have necessarily been on my radar because how well I connected with him and just his reputation and everything. And, and they like through them, you have like, I mean, their marketing resources are crazy, but they're,
Right.
a much
Corporate.
larger company.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but again, for me and my specifics, as long as there were art files and it was clear, like, what we were allowed to do and not allowed to do, that the marketing thing didn't really worry me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so having that marketing brain, a lot of agents coming into the business or a lot of agents in the business aren't necessarily great at that side of it. You have your things that you're really good at, and then you have the things that you're not so great at, and those are the things that usually get left behind. Marketing is one of those things because most of the time in the past, your brokerage and your agency provided you with all that stuff, so you didn't necessarily have to worry about it. But the more that real estate is evolving and marketing is changing quite a bit, and realtors are able to brand themselves and do their own thing, and then obviously with video and just marketing in general, the world evolving, there's all these great cool tools, but then it does get overwhelming. There's so much offered. How did you decide, and I'm sure you're still kind of navigating this and deciding, but how are you deciding to market yourself as a new realtor? And what are some of the things that you're really focusing on first? And is there some stuff that you really want to get to at some point? Tell us a little bit about kind of what your strategy is.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny. You would think I would have it more solidified than I do. But I think also the fact that like, there are so many things you can do, and I have at least a little experience in doing a lot of them, so like kind of focusing and narrowing down has been a little bit of a challenge, but I think I certainly obviously want to build a really relationship referral driven business. So I've been spending a lot of time getting my CRM up and running and becoming part of my day to day and everything like that, and I've been better at it certain days than others. And now that I'm actually in a transaction, I'm like, oh my God.
The work
But,
begins.
right, exactly. I'm like, okay, right. I really need to be good with balancing working with the clients and the transaction and also still spending time every week on my own business. And
Business. Yep.
yeah, and I know that, but I need to get a little bit better at it. But anyway, so I've created a target market for myself, so I kind of know who my ideal client is and what problems I want to solve for them. So I think to start, and this will probably start in June, I'm going to do a monthly newsletter. I've decided at this point at least to basically turn my Instagram account into a business account, but I'm keeping it, photography and real estate. And I've been figuring out ways to blend my photography with the real estate stuff as well. So those are my two main things, plus just the interaction with people in my sphere every week and kind of really keeping track of, our communications and trying to, educate folks about the fact that I am not in photography primarily anymore, but I am a realtor now. So
yes. Yep. Exactly. So with your email marketing and your CRM, does your company provide a CRM, or did you go find something, or how was that process for you? Because again, there's so many CRMs out there, and certain ones work well for people. Obviously there's a good fit for everyone, but how did you kind of decide on the CRM that you landed on, and what was that like?
Yeah, so our agency does not actually provide a CRM. So I just did the research on my own, and actually early on, Shelley told me about Sphere, and she had connected me to Ross, and I did a free trial just to kind of get in there and poke around, and I'm like, oh, this is actually great. So I looked at a couple other ones really briefly, but that was the one that I kind of just spent the most time on early on, and so I just went with that. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And that CRM provides you, I know Sphere as well. Ross is a local realtor. Little plug for Sphere and Ross. If you guys don't know, it's sphere.com. I think it's spherere.com.
I think it's Sphere RE. Yeah. I don't think it's just Sphere. Yeah. Something like that.
Google it.
Yes.
But Ross is a local realtor and had friends that did app development and has been in the business for a while and needed a CRM, but took all the good parts out of the ones that he knew about, like, basically built his own CRM for himself and then quickly realized that this is a great tool for all realtors, and then they built that out. They're constantly updating and upgrading and adding things to it, but what I love about it, it's so realtor based, because it's created by a realtor. And he's still doing business. And so if something comes up and he's like, oh, I wish Sphere did that, he can make that change with the app, and he takes really great feedback from everyone as well. But what was it like? What are your favorite parts about your CRM, and what parts were really important for you to have in a CRM?
I mean, I still haven't even honestly really dug into it, as there's a lot of functionality in there. So I have already given him feedback. Um, so anyway, I just think the logic of the way that he has it organized, and the labeling and the different fields, it just felt like it felt logical and sensical to me. And the learning curve, was just really, and I have, I've used CRMs before, obviously being in marketing.
Yeah, yeah.
But honestly, I think the CRMs that I've used in the past have been like very generic. So it always kind of like, it took a lot of finagling to get them to do what I wanted them to do. And this one, I'm like, oh, I mean, besides like there should be a save button here and there isn't, like, it's just really, there was very little learning curve, very, very easy to use and keep track of people and everything. So
Yeah, yeah. And I also know it has the functionality of like goal tracking. Are you using that?
yes, I put in a bunch of information to start,
Good.
but yes, I mean, I am definitely going to, I'm going to be using that. I did fill out, all the metrics, so then it can tell me whether I'm tracking or not. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that is also something that I really like. Yeah,
And
even though I
I
haven't
love that.
actually like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that it offers that, because when I started in real estate, I never did a CRM, which was a huge mistake. So I love talking about it, especially with new agents. I always say start there. It's the one thing I really wish I would have done. And then also like goal setting. And I, just like you, was never a big corporate person. I had worked for a corporation at some point, but mostly small businesses. And I worked with kids for a long time prior. So not a lot of business experience either. So becoming a realtor, all that stuff was new to me. And you get advice from everyone. It's like when you're pregnant, everybody wants to give you advice about pregnancy, but everybody's different. Everybody's body is different. It's the same exact thing in real estate, that you have to do what works for you, but everybody's going to tell you what works for them. You have to door knock. You have to do this, you have to do that, but you've got to do what you like to do and what works for you. And sometimes it becomes so overwhelming, you paralyze yourself, so you don't do any of it. And so goal setting, I think, really helps with that, because that's also something I never really did. And I never, like, coaching and all that stuff was a foreign language to me. I was like, a coach for business, what? And a lot of people are in that same boat, but having that accountability on a platform that you're on every day or every other day really does help put your business into perspective, because you're a mini corporation, like you're running your own business. And just like you said, and then also balancing that with working with clients and having a new transaction, which I want to talk to you about, because you are in your first transaction right now. And of course, it's a condo with HOAs, all
Yes.
that fun stuff. So
Yes.
how is that going? And how's your learning curve, and kind of how's that process for you?
Yeah, I mean, there have been some challenges, but it's an interesting transaction to have for my first one, because yeah, it's like, yeah, okay, so I kind of remember the HOA section of the course, but I'm just I'm like, I know things are different. I know that like they own the inside space, not the outside space, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like I had just finally gotten I'm like, okay, I pretty much understand like the regular sales agreement. I'm like, oh shit, this is a totally new sales agreement. So, I mean, there have been definitely some moments of rather intense stress, but honestly, like I'm learning so much more having having a different, kind of transaction and dealing with the whole HOA thing than I mean, I don't know that anyone has an easy transaction these
Yeah.
days, but
You get a
but
few in your career where you're like, oh,
right.
okay.
Oh, that just kind of works.
That 6-month
Um,
transaction I did last year. Okay, now there's the ballots.
right. Right. Exactly. So and again, like Karen has been, I mean, oh my God, I think if I added up all the minutes on the phone that I've had with her in the last I guess this has been going on for 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks. I mean, she has been a rock star, and thanks to her, even though I've gotten stressed out and nervous, like I'm confident that I'm not making a big mistake. She has got my back. She's checking some of my work, and she's just doing a really good job of explaining things to me, and it's just really helping me learn a lot in the process. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And that comes back to exactly what you were talking about in the beginning with culture and the people and really feeling supported. You may not need it forever, but there's always going to be, I mean, there's people that have been in the business 20 years that get a difficult transaction, something they've never come across. I mean, it happens all the time. And so having that, maybe you haven't talked to your principal broker all year long and then you get a doozy of a deal and you really need them. Knowing that they're there is really, really important. So I love that you talked about that in the beginning, because that is something that maybe people don't think it's as important as it really is. And so and you also mentioned other agents. And so even though you have your principal broker there, talking to other agents, just learning it, even whether you're new or not, having a community of people to talk to about certain transactions and and getting advice, because everybody thinks a little bit differently when it comes to that stuff. So it's always great to bounce ideas off each other and obviously learn something new, because that always happens in real estate. So
right. Never nothing new to learn.
exactly.
So yeah, and I really feel like even in these weird COVID times where like nothing's been happening in person, like I feel like I've actually gotten to know some people, and I do. Like if Karen is underwater on somebody who's got more of an emergency than me, there are people I know who would be, who are okay and happy to help me. And also there's like 6 or 7 of us in our little sort of new agent class, and that encompasses people who started right before COVID, just because last year was so crazy and everything. And I've really connected well with this newer group of agents too, and it's just nice to have that sort of friendship and emotional support with people who are kind of on the same page as you. The person I just told her the other day, so like, you're going to be my accountability partner, right? Because when you take Shelly's class next time, you'll know what that means. And because we already, like, we talk every day, and it's, and having that peer support has also been really great.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, because my brokerage, we don't normally take on new agents because it's not our specialty, and it's not our thing. And so newer agents are better served at brokerages that have those systems in place. And those are important. Even just like you said, a group of 5 or 6 people that are also new in the business, those are really great people to talk to, because they understand what you're going through. And you can have each other's backs, and those are probably going to be friendships and relationships that you're going to have forever. And just think, in 10 years, you're going to be like, remember when we first, our first transaction, or when we first got into the business. And so I think that's awesome. And also, just relationships in the business are really important among realtors. So those form those types of bonds that I think are really important in this business, in general. And I think it gets forgotten about a little bit sometimes. And so it's nice to hear that again, and that there is that camaraderie. And let's be real, like, realtors need to talk to each other, because like I said, nobody
Yeah.
understands like another realtor when it comes to certain things,
Right.
We're each other's
Yep, for
therapists pretty
sure.
much.
Yes.
So what else in the business, or, kind of going into it, and I know you had your spreadsheet out and all that. What else, was there anything else that we haven't talked about that was important to you in choosing and in deciding and kind of getting ready to be a full-time realtor? Monetarily, how did you set that up for yourself, and kind of what did that look like for you?
Yeah, for sure. And the monetary part was obviously really important, because I knew, I was like, all right, can I survive a year not making any money, like worst case scenario? And so I, had to do the math and really sit down and look at my finances and look at my savings and see what I was comfortable with. And, I was able to get things to a place where it's like, okay, if I don't make any money in the next 12 months, can I survive? Can I pay my mortgage? Can I eat? Okay, I can. Then obviously, hopefully I make some, but I felt like I could do it. And it was a weirdly better time to do it because I'd spent almost no money not going anywhere for the last. So yeah, so it was sort of a weird, like it kind of happened to put me in a position that I maybe wouldn't have been if I tried to do this at some other
That's
time. So
interesting. Yeah,
yeah,
that's very cool.
yeah,
Yeah, I think
yep.
everybody has that story of getting into the business, and I think that's one of the questions that newer agents need to ask a little bit more is how, because you, again, you're going to get different variations of how people set themselves up to start realtoring. And there's all different kinds of ways, obviously, to do. You even talk to a few people about like teams and partnering and assisting and things like that. How did you finally land on the decision to, because you decided just go on your own and go full board. So how did you make that decision? Because I know that you considered some of those options as well. So what was kind of the ultimate guiding decision factor for you?
Yeah, and that was definitely one of the hardest. Like I was, oh my God,
It's
I was back and
agonizing.
forth. I'd be like, no, at 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm like, I need to assist, and then 5 p.m. in the evening, no, I need to do this on my own. So like that was, I really, really, really struggled with that. And I had a lot of specific conversations, with realtors, kind of throwing these options out there and, and getting their opinions. And it kind of, once I really did budget stuff out and was like, okay, I can survive if I don't make any money. I was like, well, I'm in my mid 40s. Like if I'm going to do this, I really want to do this. And yes, real estate is a brand new world to me, but I have 25 years experience as a professional. I also, almost everyone in my family is or has been an entrepreneur at some point. So I kind of always knew that someday I would do something entrepreneurial. I had no idea what it was going to look like, but it just was like, okay, this is scary. It's totally scary, but anything worth doing is. So finally I was like, okay, it's a risk, but I feel like it's a calculated risk. And I think I can do it. I'm a hard worker. I know I have that drive. So I just finally was like, okay, and I had lots of conversations with friends and talking it all around, and just finally was like, all right,
We're doing
we're
it.
gonna do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna do
Yeah.
this. So yeah.
How, because I know the advice that, that I gave you, and I think a few people gave you similar advice. And one of the things I told you was that I thought you would be great on your own. And I know a few other people told you that as well. How much was that a factor in like hearing what people were saying to you? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you just have you ask for people's opinions, but then you're still going to go with your own. I mean, that still could happen too, but sometimes people don't really listen to what people are saying. But I think there's something to be said about people that are in the business and that will be brutally honest with you and tell you, like, nobody could have said that to you, but I think people did. So did that make any kind of impact, or is that something you actually
Yeah.
heard?
Oh yeah. No, it
Okay.
absolutely did. It absolutely did. It was talking to, to you and, and Shelly and Alicia and Shell and someone else. Yeah. I mean, we had great conversations, but it was like phone or Zoom for like an hour and a half. And all of you who have been doing this for a really long time and have a lot of experience and knowledge in these really successful careers telling me after, an hour and a half of conversation that if you want to do this on your own, you can do it. Yeah. I mean, that was definitely like, I was kind of surprised to like, kind of get kind of feedback, but it was, yeah. I mean, that was a big
Yeah.
part
I
of it
think,
for
yeah.
sure.
And
Yeah.
like I
Yep.
said, if you do the due diligence like Keri did, and you talk to a lot of people for a good amount of time, and they don't say that to you, or they're recommending, like if you hear a running theme, like take that, I feel like take that into account, because the people that have been in the business for a long time, if they have set aside time to talk to you for no other reason except for your new agent reaching out to them and they genuinely want to help you, and maybe they don't even know you, but somebody referred them to you, and they're taking the time out of their day and they're giving you their opinion, like listen to that. And I think, and if people are like, you should probably go with a team, like take that into account, because we've been through it, and that's not to say that like if 5 people tell you to go with a team, you go out on your own and you just kill the game, you're great. But I do think there is something to be said about listening to the advice that you get from people that have been in the business, and again, making it work for you, and you have to do stuff that's comfortable and that's going to work for you, obviously. But that was something that was different with you, talking to you, that I really felt strongly about that. And I was like, And that's also scary advice for a realtor to give another realtor. You're like, go on your own. You'll be great. And then you tank and you're like, ah. But, I truly feel like realtors are brutally honest and will give you their opinion and you take it or leave it. But taking those things into account when you are doing your research and things like that. Like, and I love that you did a spreadsheet and, it might be an atypical thing to do, but just like in real estate, you talk to so many people, you're just going to forget and things are going to get lost. And so taking notes and actually writing that out. And I'm sure that you looked at that and there was like a clearer picture because you had it all in front of you. And so I'm sure that that had to have helped.
Oh, it did. I can't even imagine like having all those conversations. Like, yeah, I mean, I've always been a copious note taker, and I can't imagine life without spreadsheets. As unglamorous, as unexciting, but just like that method of being able to keep track of the important information and be able to see it and display it and kind of ruminate on it.
And it
Yeah,
helps
for sure.
give you a clearer picture. It's like, oh man, you might hear it, but then if you see it and you've written it down and it's several times of the same thing being said, like, okay, I think it's great. Not everybody, just like you said, it's not the fancy part of things, but it does help. And everybody has their own way of learning and you carry that into your business. But just like me, I'm not a spreadsheet person. I'm a total note taker, but I take notes because not to go cross them off later, but so I don't forget. And I feel like when I write it down, I'm like, oh, I can remember that off the top of my head. But if I do need to go back, I have my notes. It's a safety blanket, It's like, okay.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
I've got
for
it
sure.
somewhere in here.
And I definitely exactly. It's in this book somewhere. And I mean, I am also, oh my God, I have so many notebooks on my desk right now. I am also a copious, like I am taking notes when I'm talking, and then I'm like looking at my chicken scratch after, and then I'm pulling that into my spreadsheet because I'm like, I am going to go back to this a week from now and be like, what are those 3 words? I can't because I have terrible handwriting. So it's kind of a 1-2 process, but I'm also somebody that by the act of writing things down does also just, it helps it stick in here more. So
it will benefit you in the real estate business because we're dealing with human beings and no, I didn't say that, or that's why I email, and just all of that stuff is really good to you're on it. And it's those little things that people don't really think about in this business that really do benefit you. So whatever system works for you, but just have a system, like do something instead of nothing.
right.
Not nothing. All right,
Yes.
Keri, is there anything else, any advice that you have for new agents or people thinking about becoming a real estate agent, just kind of off the top of your head that you can think of?
I think, at least like I've just been blown away by how incredibly like generous with their time real estate agents are here. I mean, like super high producing, really, really busy folks who've like made the time to talk to me. And I know that's not necessarily true everywhere, but hopefully if you can, anybody who is new out there and is kind of trying to figure out, just network and connect and be genuine and grateful and connect with people and ask the questions. And I think that's just the biggest thing that got me to, where I am right now.
And it's the same, you just got to ask. The worst you're going to get is a no, I don't have time. And then you move on to, So I love that you did that. I think it's really, really good advice that will benefit new agents getting into the business. And also too, we talked a little prior about, I thought it would be really great for brokerage owners to also hear the feedback from a new agent coming in. And I think it's the same for them. And they genuinely are pretty generous with their time, but people just don't ask. And so you just got to ask. I love
absolutely. Oh, and you know what? One other thing. So I'm taking Shelly Babbitt's New Agent 365 course, and it is keeping me on track with all of that. While I've got active clients and transactions, I have to be working on my own business, every week for 12 weeks, and hopefully that provides a foundation. But I mean, she's obviously amazing and so successful and amazing in such a short amount of time. And the fact that she is, already giving back in this amazing way, I mean, the cost of this thing is ridiculous for how much you get out of it.
It's very inexpensive.
And it's become a nice little online community also of just kind of helping each other out. And to the agents who are, teaching in a given week, like they're often kind of sticking around after their week and answering questions. And it's just, I think it's an awesome resource. And I think any new agent should absolutely take that.
Yeah, and there are
class.
agents from all over the US in there. So you're building referral partners right there. That's already a part of the business that you don't really think of in the beginning, but knowing an agent in Michigan or New York or whatever, and having a relationship with them and knowing that they're going to treat your clients well is really another valuable relationship that people forget about until somebody asks them, do you know a realtor in Idaho? And you're like, oh, snap, I got to go find someone. But if you already have that relationship, that person's going to come top of mind. Yep, I do. I have somebody I can send to you. And then the person asking you thinks that you're freaking fantastic. And then they tell their local friends about you. And so again, it's those relationships and kind of what you put into it, you're going to get out of it. So thank you for mentioning that. And I also think that there's something to be said about doing some sort of program that works for you, because even if you don't know what you don't know, or when you know that you need to learn about something, but it's coming up in like the third week or the fourth week, it gives you another sense of security that you are going to learn that, and that it's not going to get forgotten about in your business. And it's stuff that it's always, you don't know what you don't know, especially in real estate. And so doing a program like that really does help. And especially like seeing the layout and like, oh, I never even thought about that for my business. So then it becomes top of mind and something that you can work on and make your business stronger and better. And that's what we all want, right?
Yep.
All right, Keri, thank you so much. Where can people find you? Your Instagram, what's your Instagram handle?
So my Instagram is just Keri_Friedman, which is KERI_FRIEDMAN, and that's the best place. And then I've got a page on the Urban Nest Realty site as well. So I will have my own website at some point.
On the list,
a little bit down the road, but got to get it out there at least for SEO purposes. So. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for being on. I know you were like, okay, I'm just a new agent. What am I doing on a podcast? But your insight is really, really valuable. So I really do appreciate you sharing that with us, and good luck in your real estate career.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you for having me. When you first asked, I was like, oh my God, that sounds scary. So I'm like, okay, yep, I got to do it. So I very much appreciate. I love
seeing realtors jumping in to do things that they've never done before. And hey, I'd never done a podcast before I started it. So, and I get to talk to agents all the time. So I love that part of it. So yeah, always try something new.
Awesome. Exactly.
All right. Thanks, Keri.